They're doing quite a bit. All right. Okay, according to my Apple phone, it is my iPhone, it is 6 o'clock. I know our clock is just a few moments behind there on the wall, but it's better, Madam Clerk. I think it was 10 minutes behind before, so we're getting better. So thank you very much. So I hereby call to order the July 24th Auburn City Council regular business meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara,
Present.
Holmes, Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
And for the record, Councilmember Berlant will be absent this evening and we're expecting Councilmember Riddell Harris soon.
Yeah, she will be on her way. Councilwoman Amara, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here she is. The record show, Madam Councilwoman just is arrived, so we just started. And first item on the agenda is Mayor's commendations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. I did want to say a congratulations to the Auburn Mermaids, the synchronized swim team. They took second in the Valley Valley League Championships yesterday at the Sunrise Pool. It was quite toasty. And they're going to be doing a water show at ARD tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So it's my little plug. Of course, my kiddo is a swimmer. And it's free to the public. So if you want to watch some synchronized swimming, please go to the Auburn Rec Park to the main pool at 7 o'clock tomorrow. I also wanted to announce that we have the Tevis Cup coming up this weekend. And so if you want an opportunity to see some phenomenal horse people coming on in, they'll be probably coming in, I'd say between 9:30, 10:30 or so. I'm looking at Shannon back there to give me a nod if that seems to be about right. So, and you can see the folks come in at the finish line, which is at the fairgrounds. And it's always a great opportunity. These guys and gals are riding their horses 100 miles. It's going to be hot. But they do take a lot of precautions to make sure that the horses remain in good condition and healthy. So looking forward to Tevis Cup. There's a barbecue on Wednesday, a general admission barbecue. So looking forward to meeting some of the riders there. I also wanted to announce I had the distinct pleasure and honor to attend the MAD Law Enforcement Awards ceremony, recognition ceremony last week. And I'd like to invite the chief up because we were the recipients of a few awards. So Chief.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, Ryan Canan, the Chief of Police here. And like you mentioned, last week, we were able to attend the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Law Enforcement Recognition Luncheon. That is an event they do annually that represents and recognizes, I think we had almost 400 police officers and sheriff's deputies at the event and being recognized for all their DUI arrests for last year. And to get recognized, one of the things you have to do, one is just arrest 25 DUIs throughout the year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is a lot. It's a lot of work just to arrest 25. Obviously, some larger cities can have different effects and, maybe more targets, shall we say, out there and everything else. But two of our officers were recognized last week for their work and to be recognized for their efforts with DUIs. Now, everybody knows we're a city of about 7.5 square miles. And in that 7.5 square miles, trying to get 25 DUIs probably is hard enough. But these two officers, Sergeant Davis here and Officer Bandia, both had over 25 DUIs. Sergeant Davis had 38 last year. And then Officer Bandia was actually recognized as the Northern California Mothers Against Drunk Drivers Outstanding Rookie of the Year. So not just for his DUI arrest, but for all the work that he did in prevention, customer service, outreach to the different restaurants and different bars. He had 32 DUI arrests. Now we talk about a 12-month period, which is a lot, but from August to December is where he got his 32 DUIs, which is pretty impressive. And now year to date, he is at about 47 DUIs in a city, like I said, about 7.5 square miles. And the work that the entire department, specifically these two, have done to combat DUI in the city has been nothing short of phenomenal. There used to be local businesses that at 2:30 in the morning, you could drive through the bar and the parking lot would be empty, which, anecdotally, you'd think that they all drove home drunk. Now You drive past some of these establishments at 2:30 and the parking lots are full of cars. And our local cab driver, along with our city's on-demand driving, is actually getting people home safely and reducing DUI crashes and keeping people safe. So these two gentlemen here have done a tremendous job really keeping our streets safe, especially when it comes to drunk and impaired driving. So I was just glad to be able to recognize them. And thank you.
Thank you. And our own chief was also actually had to stand up there and shake all the hands of the recipients, but he also delivered a very nice speech on hope. So thank you very much for your leadership on this as well, chief, because it's certainly very well appreciated. So it was a great event, a very nice luncheon. The room was filled with men and women in blue and tan. So I kind of stuck out. I don't even remember what I think I wrote red. But yeah, pink, Barbie pink. But in any event, very pleased that I was able to attend last week. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And unless there's any objection, I'll consider the agenda adopted. Hearing no objection, that shall be the order. We'll move to consent agenda. Council members, are there any questions or requests to remove any items off consent? I do, for the record, want to actually remove two items. I want to remove item number 2 and item number 6. Any other items, council? Item 5. Okay, nope. All right. Any member of the public wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Any public comment on this matter, Madam Clerk? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
I move we approve, we adopt the consent agenda minus item 2, 5, and 6.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mara.
Yes.
Holmes. Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvian.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. Item number 2, there was 2 reasons I wanted to pull this off. First of all, I wanted to recognize Becky Johnson. She is here today. Oftentimes our appointees are not in the audience. So if you'd like to stand, just introduce Becky. She is our candidate for appointment. And so thank you for your interest. But I also wanted to pull this off the agenda because I wanted just to give the council a heads up that during the mid-year budget adjustment, I would like to appropriate a few dollars to the Greater Auburn Area Fire Safe Council. Right now, the city council, the board of supervisors, we don't provide any direct funding to that council. As you know, Councilman Berlant is our city appointee to the council. I'm sure he would not object. And I'm sorry that he wasn't able to be here today, but of course it was an unintended emergency for him. So, but I'm not talking about a lot, but this particular entity does a lot for our area in the form of education. They do try to secure grants, and that's really what they run off of. But I think that it would be prudent for the city and for the county to pledge a little bit of financial support for their efforts, especially given the fact that our fire department, we've had to make some adjustments there. And so I really feel like it would be prudent and a good use of our funds. So I will be asking for this during the mid-year budget adjustment process. So that's really the 2 items. Yes.
We had discussed doing that in prior meeting.
We may
Didn't we
have, but
talk
we
about
have
that?
not appropriated any funds to them. We might have talked about it, but we didn't actually do it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't recall that perhaps it was in a discussion. I think we've talked about it in the context of fire prevention and education, sort of just whenever the chief has brought something forward, we've talked about that as an option, but we've never actually taken action. So I'll work with the chief and with the city manager just to ensure we can appropriate
Yeah.
just a few.
I think when Rob gave his presentation, we had discussed it maybe.
It might have been at that time too. So
Anyway.
in any event, just want to let folks know this was a good opportunity since we had this item on the agenda, just to say that I'd like to be able to provide just a little bit of support. We can't ask the county to support if we're not. And so, we'll be having the same conversation in our 3x3 meetings. But we just need to do more because they are serving not just the city, they're the area, but when fires don't see boundaries. So in any event, with that said, that's all that I have on number 2. Council members, do you have any questions or concerns on item 2?
Nope.
Any public comment on item 2? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a
I'm-
motion. Oh, good. You want to do it?
Oh, yes, by resolution, we approve amendment number 3 to the Auburn, item number 2. Item number 2. Appoint Becky Johnson as the GAAFSC as the City of Auburn representative, even though we talked about something else.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amar.
Yes.
Holmes. Riddell Harris. Mayor Dowden Covio.
Aye, let the record show the motion has been adopted and congratulations, Becky. All right, next item on the agenda, item 5. This is the Auburn Municipal Airport Ground Lease East Hangar Buildings. Councilman Holmes, you had questions on this item?
Yes, well, our airport is pretty important to us in a number of different ways.
Your mic was off.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, and I'd like to have a fuller explanation on, for the public on this ground lease for rows G through L at the hangar buildings.
Jonathan?
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. What you have before you this evening is an amendment to the lease. This was, as you know, with a significant amount of investment that's gone on at the airport with all the new hangars that are going in. We are now to the point where we're giving them C of O's, certificate of occupancy, so they can occupy the structures. In that next step requires that we start working with the subleases. So this becomes a new negotiation point again with our leaseholder. So this particular amendment was two things. One is, actually there's three. The first thing is there was a provision in the lease that required the subleases to immediately register with the city and we had to approve them. Then the question of what if it's a holiday? What if it's a weekend? What if it's after hours? And we have some of the people out there that are actually going to be doing transient rentals where they would have aircraft come in over the weekend and possibly leave before Monday. And so this actually provides a transient provision in there that allows for up to 30 days that the sublessee would be notifying us of the occupancy, but that there would be that 30-day grace period that they could work through those types of things. So that way staff doesn't have to be present on the weekend out at the airport and we can get through that hurdle. The other one was dealing with the fire insurance and working with our insurer as to what they would accept, because now we have the sublessees out there that would be falling under this agreement. And do they need to have fire insurance, or is the master policy good enough? And coming back to it, they said that the master policy under the primary lessee would be, or lessor, excuse me, would be, or excuse me, lessee, go back to lessee, would be acceptable so long as we are named as lost payee and anybody else in there. So as long as they have a significant amount of coverage to replace the cost of the building, should it be damaged in any of the property inside, that was adequate. And then there was one tiny Scribner's error in there that dealt with the APN number. Actually the number in the agreement was the original lease was actually for the neighboring parcel, somehow got intertwined in there. So that's just to clean up that Scribner's error. And that concludes the staff's report.
And how many total hangar spaces will there be there?
Hangars or hangar spaces?
Hangar spaces.
I don't have that answer off the top of my head. We have, it was required per our lease to do a mix. So there are T hangars, which are more affordable because they're smaller. And so there's 2 rows of T hangars. And then there is 4 rows, I believe, of what are considered executives, which are the larger box hangars. I couldn't tell you, I wouldn't want to guess right now, give you the wrong number, but there's a significant amount of hangars now out there. And the person who's developing them, or the company who's developing them, is doing it based off of demand. So we originally gave them a 5-year grace period to develop these hangars. And they're about to get certificate of occupancy on 3, I believe. The 4th one's almost done, and they're still working on negotiations for the 5th. So within, I believe, less than a year, we are now almost through this whole build. So it's going rapidly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? All right, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, council, what's your pleasure?
Madam Mayor, I'll move by resolution to approve the amendment number 3 to the Auburn Municipal Airport Ground Lease East Area Hangar Buildings rows G through L.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. There's a motion in a second. Jonathan, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this? Oh,
Pretty
okay.
exciting.
Okay, you're getting ready. Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Berlant is not here. Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris. And Mayor Dowd and Calvio.
Aye, let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. I had asked about item number 6 being taken off, and you know what I think? Hold on, glasses on. No, I got the right item. Actually, just a moment here. One moment. Let me see. Sorry. What happens when I write so many notes down? No, I think that really the only question I had on this was the financial one. I see that the bid was 72,600, and I just wondered what the total contract amount was. Is it with the 10% contingency? I just didn't see that in the staff report.
And I apologize for that not being in the staff report. Attached to the staff reports, the actual contract, and in that it has a not to exceed amount of 65,340. Staff will be taking the legislative change forward in order to save the city money. So we were able to reduce that 70.
72. So
yeah.
I missed it in the contract. So what is the number amount again?
It's $65,340.
65,300. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry. I looked through the contract and all the documents, but I must have somehow missed that because I did see the price sheet. And that's why I was just curious about that. So thank you very much for clarifying that. Are there any other questions? Oh, the other question really was, I see that for the development impact fees, we have fire facilities. So they're going to take a look at what it is to maintain fire facilities, because I know that the council already considered the fire department fees. There were quite a few of them, and we adopted several changes. No, we didn't adopt changes. We looked at changes. We adopted authority to assess a one fee for the inspections, but I thought that we made changes to all those other fees.
Mayor,
Ask the chief.
if I may, real quick before the chief gets up here, again, Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. What we requested of them is to do a comprehensive look at the fees that we have. So the work that has already been done would be incorporated into that look. We want them to give us a cost sheet, what we're missing out on, so that we can advise council on those things that we should be collecting money for that otherwise we're not doing it, but that have impact to our systems and have additional costs. So
Absolutely. And I understand the intent and I fully support that. You know, it's
Thank
the
you.
whole ethic of cost of service. So I do recognize that. But Chief, can you tell me what we did then with the fire fees? Because I thought that there was a whole like I don't know how many, please.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor and council members, for the record, Dave Spencer, your fire chief. Great question. We're talking about two different things. The fire fees are the fees that are charged for our staff to deliver services, inspections, so on. The fire facility fee is a fee that is tied to the development of fire stations as a result. So they're two separate things that we, both equipment, facilities, that type of thing, we collect those fees based on, you know, the cost of how we set out our fee structure.
Okay, so we're just going to look then at the facilities. That was my question. Was it going to also include the services that we provide, which I thought we already took a look at,
Correct.
or is it just the facilities? And so it sounds like it's just going to be the facilities.
Two separate things, two separate items.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions on this item? I had pulled it off, so council? Any public comment? All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
I move by resolution to approve the professional service agreement with ClearSource Financial Consulting in association with Harris and Associates, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris. Mayor Dowd and Calvio.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda will be public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council on items not on the agenda tonight. Council cannot take action on said items, but we can refer them to staff for subsequent review and action at a subsequently noticed meeting. I'll hereby open public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes.
Oh, yes, Councilman Holmes.
Yes, as I see around town, we're getting more and more electric vehicles. And I think it's time that we do an inventory of EV charging stations, both public and private, to see where we stand, and also perhaps for those that we have control of, what the actual usage is over a period of time.
I think we have 5. Public ones. And 1 here. Oh, so we have 6.
The county is also doing they have a group of subject matter experts that are developing a plan for the whole county on where to put public charging and trying to make sure that it's at appropriate places that are going to utilize appropriately, and places that we don't have charging deserts where there's any charging, things like that. So I think it'll be great when we get involved in that, but they're kind of still in the early stages.
Yeah, and I know that we talked about that at our last 3x3 with them, so we are looking forward to some additional information there. But so Councilman Holmes, are you asking staff just to give you an update on that? A separate update?
Well, I think it'd be, for future planning, we need to have some idea of where we stand now. And for example, I know there's some privately owned, Save Mart and some other places, they're also charging stations. So we have a better feel for the whole city and how many there are available.
I know that we're probably going to get some updates on how fleet is going and things. There's an app we can just pull up that shows all of the public charging that's available. We could probably work that into when we're talking about any of the updates we're doing with electric vehicles and things like that in the area.
So council, is there any objection just to having an informational item at an upcoming meeting at some point, just to give us an update on our on the number of charging stations that are in the city of Auburn, those that are publicly owned?
You know what might be good is actually having the county come and talk about what they're doing. Because they do have that working group that's going on. Might be good for them to just talk, to get an update on what they're working on. That might be a way of bringing it in and also getting some new information that we don't already have.
So I'll leave that up to staff as to how you want to integrate that, but at a meeting.
Yeah, well,
Because this is. public comment. It's
Yes,
supposed to
this
be
is
going back.
really, yeah, and I just, with all due respect, Councilman Holmes, items like this really need to be reported under council reports. So we've kind of, it might have been after you were elected, but we try to hold our discussions on potential new items to put under council discussion. So this is truly just the opportunity for public comment on general items.
Okay, well, it's a comment about general items.
Yes, but our request to put things on future agendas. So it's
Well,
fine.
I will make that at the appropriate time.
Thank you. But we will, I think for the purposes of today, I think that we've given, there's no objection. Staff can put together something if you want to work with the county, just for an informational item only at a meeting when you have the opportunity to gather that kind of data. So, okay, is there any other public comment at this time? Seeing no further public comment, I will close public comment and take it back to the council. We have the next item on the agenda is a public hearing. We have one public hearing item. This is a tax agreement with, I want to say Miltenier Biotech Inc. And would you like to introduce the item, Mr. City Manager? No, Mr. Jonathan.
I'll turn it over to
Somebody-
Jonathan. Yeah.
Somebody please.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Again, Jonathan Wright, Community Economic Development Director. What you have before you is one of the first, I believe, tax sharing agreements in quite some time for the city of Auburn. A while back, the city council held a goal setting workshop in which they identified the need for diversified revenues as well as finding additional funding sources into the future. And so in working with our local businesses, we do site visits, we get out and contact our businesses in town. I happened to go over to Miltenier Biotech one afternoon and the door was locked. And so I kind of pushed on a little bit and it popped open and I wandered in and willing to talk to them about growth and what's going on. And I found one person in the building. So it was the finance lady located at the very back. And I said, I'm looking at all the cubicles. I go, where is everybody? And she goes, they're gone. I went, oh my goodness. So that started this process that we are currently looking at today. I immediately contacted the CFO of Miltenny Biotech and asked them what's going on. They confirmed that they had left, that they had moved their headquarters, which had been in Auburn for, I think, longer than 30 years. They'd moved it out to Gaithersburg, Maryland, and they were no longer here. And in fact, they were looking to draw down folks from that site and ultimately close it. Looking at Miltenny as a significant contributor to tax revenues, as well as a significant area employer that provides high-paying living wage jobs, which are the ones we really try to generate here, people that can afford to buy houses and thrive here. To have that location closed, it would be financially devastating to the city. Financially, it would could possibly affect services, including all those public safety ones that we have out there. So staff is vigorously engaged with Miltenny to keep them here and to have them rethink the closure. In fact, it's resulted in, so far, we've co-authored 4 CalCompetes grants to try to get them the $10 million, excuse me, that they're looking for to try to reinvest in this facility should they be able to stay. Ultimately, it came down to the CFO advising staff that should the city put skin in the game, come up with some type of plan to help them financially, that it would probably convince their board to keep them here. So that's where we engulfed on this or embarked on this adventure to get to this point. Miltenny sees the benefit in being in Auburn. One of the things that COVID taught them was that distribution and networks like that are become very strained. A lot of their stuff, well, all their stuff distributes now from Gaithersburg, and getting it across the US became hard, and it wasn't as cost effective, especially with delays that happened during bad weather. They've decided that they're really going to focus on putting a distribution facility here, state of the art. We're not warehousing and distribution, but when we talk about biotech, it's not what you think about with like Amazon boxes coming and going. We're talking about pharmaceutical grade, biological equipment, products that deal with cancer research, that deal with COVID-19 research, that goes directly out to either support their services at their other locations, or it goes directly to the hands of medical folks on the West Coast. So I like to think of this agreement as the proverbial win-win, because it is a performance-based agreement. Some other tax agreements in doing research, you can take what the tax that they provide to the city, and you can provide them a share back. That becomes very difficult. We have a very small budget that we use all of pretty much to operate the city. So my goal was not to have anything come out that would financially harm the city. So I made it a performance base. I looked at their growth over the last 5 years and happened to notice that in 2017, they actually grew their sales by 28%. Then 2018, they grew it again by 38%. 2019, 39%. It continued to grow. And so looking at that, knowing that we have a baseline amount that we'd be getting annually, and then whatever they produce above that, we would then be willing to provide back to them based off of whatever the previous quarter of the previous year was. And so it became pretty simple to me that as they look to stay here and increase their distribution from the site, that they'll be able to meet the demand and actually continue to grow their tax base, which is a win-win for the city, for the community, especially because we'll be getting back most of the jobs that were otherwise lost there. And with this, we hope that in them signing it, that they will stay for at least as long as the term of the agreement, if not longer. We have followed all the required protocol for notifications and bring this matter forward to you for decision today. So this concludes staff's report.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your report, and thank you so much for thinking outside the box and working so diligently to make this deal, to broker this deal. We really, on behalf of the city, we really do truly appreciate that. Thank goodness you picked that day to visit.
Everything happens
fortuitous.
for a reason
How
here.
fortuitous. Before I open this up for council, I just wanted to reiterate, this is very different than the tax sharing agreement we have with World Energy, which is a point of sale contract. And this really is not that. And Gary, if you just want to reiterate or just kind of enunciate, not enhance that a little bit.
Yeah, that's right, Mayor and council members. There are certain types of sales tax reimbursement agreements that the state has curtailed, and those are the kind that take sales tax revenue from other jurisdictions by design. So there are tax agreements that do that. This is not one of them. We've carefully looked at those laws. There are provisions in this agreement to ensure it doesn't run counter to that. So it is a sales tax reimbursement agreement. It is different than the other ones that you currently have in place and that some other cities still have in place as legacy agreements before the state law took effect.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that folks were clear that this is very different from that previous tax sharing agreement that we all know about. So in any event, questions or comments from the council on this item? Yes, Councilwoman.
Yes, I remember, it was about a year ago that when I think I was mayor, when you went in and said, no one's here. So you've been working with them for this long and appreciate that. This is, to me, this is just such a great thing for our city. We're really moving forward and doing what we want to do and need to do. I'm just very thrilled and excited that you are able to put this together. I'm sure it wasn't that easy. And Miltenyi is, it's a company that's comes out of Germany, and I think they're in 70 places all over the world. They're all over the world,
They're
Um,
absolutely international.
international. And your staff report, I don't know if you mentioned it, they could grow up to 60 to 80 employees. Is that right?
Originally, they had over 100, and right now they're actually growing staff back up here in anticipation of staying. And so I was trying to be conservative on my estimates, but it's going to, they've discussed getting back over 100.
That's fantastic.
Great.
And then do they'll be doing all the improvements, or they have done the improvements? And no. Okay.
They'll be doing all the improvements. They have a plan for it. And the CFO was waiting to get this into place before, and he's already briefed his board before actually rolling the plan out. And we're expecting them to actually submit design drawings pretty soon.
And I understand they have to have freezers and really very
Right.
complicated improvements that they'll be putting in there.
If you've been in there, it's already pretty complicated with the amount of freezers and
It'll be
specialized.
even more
equipment.
complicated.
Yeah.
And so now they're going to put I think a big box freezer, which is going to occupy a larger space in there that people will be doing a lot of this work out of.
And so the contract was 2052? Is that
It's a
Did I
10-year,
10 year?
it's 10-year contract.
10-year contract? Okay. And
But-
again, my comment is, thank you. Fantastic. I'm very excited that we're able to do this and very happy for Miltenyi. It's a great company and to have in our city.
And happy for Auburn as well. So like I said, it really did broker a great deal and really do appreciate that so much. Councilwoman, Riddell Harris, and then Councilman Holmes.
Yes, I just wanted to say specifically thank you to Jonathan, because I know that you've been working not only on this deal, but on grants that didn't
Right.
pan out. And there's been many times that we've been trying to system that haven't quite worked out the way that we hoped and trying to keep them here. And so I appreciate you kind of navigating the different avenues to try to find something that would work for them. We've been really working hard to try to diversify this revenue stream and try to make it so we're kind of a little bit more bulletproof than just having if one company decides to leave. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done over the last year. I know that we would not be in the great situation we are where we're growing and developing as a community if you didn't come and work here. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Holmes.
Yes, I'm wondering whether this particular item might be something that we might want to talk to GSEC about. Although this agreement would, how long are they going to take to get these employees back?
They're gonna have to do the facility upgrade. They're already working on staffing up again. So all the spaces that they had that were unoccupied, they're bringing folks back in anticipation of this. Employment is hard right now and people know that. So they're trying to get ahead of it with hiring employees. But ultimately, they're gonna be doing the majority of the hiring after post-construction. So I would say, I don't know how ambitious they are, but I'd say the next year and a half, we'll probably be seeing a lot more employment
Well,
activity.
as I said, GSEC might be able to help us with it somehow.
And I actually discussed with GSEC, the Cal Competes grants that we've been failing at because we need some more political pool that would help massage maybe our application ahead of Microsoft and some of the other ones. So we're going to continue to apply for grants and continue to try to support them any way we can. And that's one of the ways I've discussed with GSEC already.
We have access to all their data now too. So absolutely. Any other questions or comments on this from the council? I'll open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Are there any other discussions by the council? I have to follow the format. Hearing none, I will ask the council, what's your pleasure on this item?
By resolution, approve a tax sharing agreement, economic development incentive agreement with Miltenyi Biotech, Inc., finding that is exempt from CEQA review under 15061B3 and authorizing the city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
All right, let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan. Next item on the agenda is a business item. We have 1103 High Street lease with Western States Trail Museum. Woo-hoo! And I know, Mr. City Manager, if you want to, I can just say a few words that we have been working diligently with the Western States Trail Museum Board of Directors for the past more than 2 years on negotiating a lease for space, about 1,200 square feet at the 1103 High Street, the old City Hall building there behind the chamber. And it's really been an interesting journey. We started with one plan and it morphed into a different plan. And so, really having to go with the flow. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to work on this and to keep, diligent and our efforts on the prize. And I'm very much looking forward to this item being approved tonight and moving forward with the museum. And Mr. City Manager, if you'd like to formally bring a staff report forward, just wanted to bring that introduction.
Yeah, so you basically gave the intro for my staff report, which is because you've been here and been dealing with it much longer than I have, obviously. I'll just kind of go through the quick kind of salient terms of the agreement so folks understand what we're doing. So the lease premises are the 2 back rooms and a conference room of the building located at 1103 High Street, consisting of approximately 1,200 square feet of commercial space. There's a map attached to the agreement that's in your packet that shows the outline of where the building will be. It does not encroach into the Chamber of Commerce building. Term of the lease is for a period of 10 years at $1 per year. Tenant shall develop overall development plans, preliminary costs, construction schedules, et cetera, for the leased areas, including any repairs, maintenance, improvements required to bring the building into compliance with federal, state, local laws, all the legal speak that Gary tossed in there for us. And then any other improvements desired by the tenant. The city shall pay for the cost of these improved repairs up to $76,700 in American Rescue Plan Act, so ARPA funds. All maintenance, repairs, improvements are completed by the tenant unless the city and its discretion determines that we should be doing those. They can't make any improvements to the building without obtaining written consent of the city, because it's the city's building still. And then any improvements must be done in compliance with all governing building codes. And then they will be responsible for 25% of the utilities of the building. That's the kind of salient points, at least on the agreement itself. There's not any kind of a CEQA impact to this because it's an existing facility. As you said, I've been working on this since I started here. Really glad to see it get to the point of where we're able to present it to council. And our recommendation to you is to approve that. I can answer questions if you have questions.
Yes, Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. My question is, why are they just paying 25% of utilities?
Yeah, so there's 3 tenants in the building right now. So it's the California Welcome Center. There will be the museum and then also the chamber. The chamber pays 27% of the utilities. I got that flipped. Chamber pays 20% of the utilities. Welcome Center pays 27% of the utilities. And now the museum will be paying 25% of the utilities. The city picks up the other basically quarter of the rest. The previous leases were set up with those 20 and 27%. It makes sense to keep this on that same track unless we go back and renegotiate to have everybody pay an equal amount, but there's not an equal amount of folks coming
Are they
in
on
and out.
separate meters or?
No, they're not. It's all one
That's
meter.
why.
That's why it's set up that way. We went through and pulled out the past year's worth of utility bills just to give them an idea of where it would be. And it's between like $110 and $600 and something dollars higher in the winter because of using gas.
I see.
The electrical part's not as high.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Other questions? Yes, Councilman Holmes.
Yes. As I recall, the original proposal had a larger area for the Western States Trail Museum. And is there a provision in this that if at some future date, they would have a larger portion or not?
There's not, as part of this agreement, they could always come back and renegotiate the terms if they needed to. The larger space had them coming into the storage area that the chamber uses, which would then result in the chamber not having the storage area that they have now to create an ADA bathroom. They're going to build the bathroom within the shell of the museum itself now on the back part of the building.
And Councilman Holmes, I think that the museum board of directors at some point in time might be interested in expanding but really they've got to raise some funds and take care of the small space first. And we can always renegotiate a lease at a later time. too.
Yes.
So that will obviously impact the chamber. That's a much bigger deal, but
Yeah, I think from our perspective, the most important thing was to get the lease approved so they could get opened up and then get folks in there to see what they got.
I had a question.
yes.
As far as ADA compliance goes, it's an old building and sometimes that's challenging, and a museum is something that you'd have a variety of visitors to. Is ADA appropriate for what it should be in order to have everyone have access to that building?
The construction and the improvements that that they'll be doing have to be ADA compliant. So they need to put in ADA access. They'll be accessing from the back of the building. My understanding is that
It's already, the back is already, they have a ramp in the back.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So, but the restroom will be ADA.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, I will open this item up for public comment. I know we have our Western States Trail Museum Board President back there. If there's any public comment on this item, I'll open public comment. Nobody wants to speak in support? Board of Directors sitting in that room. Okay. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment online?
There is not.
All right, seeing that there is no public comment, I'll bring this back to the council and generally speaking, the mayor doesn't make a motion, but I would very much like to make a motion by resolution to approve the commercial office lease agreement between the city and the Western States Trail Museum for the purposes of using a portion of the 1103 High Street for the Western States Trail Museum and to authorize the city manager to execute that agreement.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Holmes.
aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. All right, we'll move down to our next item on the agenda. This is joint operations agreement with Placer Hills Fire Protection District, Penryn Fire Protection District, Newcastle Fire Protection District, Forest Hill Fire Protection District, and the Auburn City Fire Department. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, fellow council members. Again, for the record, Dave Spencer, your fire chief. The item before you tonight is a joint operating agreement between the said agencies, as you mentioned, both Placer Hills, Penryn Fire Protection District, Newcastle Fire Protection District, and Forest Hill. By way of background, it is important to understand that as an all-risk fire department, we have what's known as constant staffing, meaning that when there is a vacant position for whatever reason, we have to fill that and not drop below that number. So when you think about our staffing model, we have normal, what we would describe in employee relations as leave time. That would be sick time, vacation time, those types of things. That is a variable for us and is something that we're certainly involved in and are able to forecast. What we're not able to forecast is some long-term vacancies. Those long-term vacancies, the examples would include workers' comp injuries, also through attrition when we lose an employee. It takes a period of time to spin up to be able to not only recruit for that position, but also go through the background process. So that puts us in a position where we then have open positions. I will use the example that we're in today, where we currently have two of our firefighters that are out on injury as it relates to workers' comp, and potentially a third coming again. And we're also losing one of our battalion chiefs to a neighboring agency. So what that does in our staffing is really puts the emphasis on our line staff to pick up the pieces for that and to work those extra days. So as a fire chief, my job is to make sure that our people continue to maintain their mental health as well as their physical health. So we monitor how many days our people are working back-to-back shifts because they work a 24-hour day. It's really important to monitor them for fatigue and injury as well. So you can see that really in constant staffing, it really puts a burden on us when we have these types of things that come up, and they come up from time to time. In this operating agreement, what this will do is allow us to reach to a neighboring agency to say that today or tomorrow, I'll use tomorrow as an example, we have a vacant position at the firefighter rank. We don't have anybody internally that's available to fill that position for whatever reason. We would like to offer them to be able to fill that spot so that we can maintain our constant staffing. That's the simplest explanation I can provide for you, and that would happen at every rank. With that, that will relieve some of the pressure that we're experiencing internally by working our people back-to-back days in a constant rotation. I will tell you that I'm pleased that this council has approved the labor groups agreement. I think that we'll see some stabilization as a result of that. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the agreement.
All right, council members, questions? Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you for your presentation, Chief. A lot of these agencies, I mean, I grew up in Weimar, so we use Meta Vista quite a bit. They're fairly small. And so we're having a hard time keeping our staff. If they're all having a hard time keeping staff, which I know there's a lack of firefighters in general to meet demand. Does the agreement provide us much benefit if everyone is down staff?
Well, it's really going to be a case-by-case basis. The way that the policy works is that we will, once we identify that there's a vacancy, we'll offer it to our internal staff first. I've authorized for our internal staff to work in a lower position or upper position if they're qualified. So we'll be able to have some resources within that. But again, we have some limitations because we only have so many people. Then at that point, we'll go out to an outside organization and offer it up. If they're available, great. If they're not, because they have a responsibility just like we do to be able to protect their own district and their own citizens. And so it is really a case by case. We've found that in discussion with the neighboring agencies that this system has really benefited them over the last several years. And so we would like to see if that would assist us as well.
Are there any downsides to doing this kind of agreement?
I couldn't come up with any downsides. I will tell you that I did vet it with the city attorney and asked for his opinion on this, and he didn't give me any negative feedback whatsoever. So that was the best due diligence I could do.
And the staff, if they ask for one of our staff to come work, if we have staff available, is it optional or do we tell them to go? How does that work?
No, it's completely optional.
Okay, so they just let our staff know that's available and we have an agreement so that they can go work there if they would like to.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Councilwoman Amara.
I couldn't find, the compensation is just the pay, the regular pay. It's not.
Yeah, so
Above and beyond.
the way the compensation works is that we will, if an employee comes and works here at our agency at whatever rank they're working at, what they're assigned, we will compensate them at the fully loaded cost. And then that will be dispersed about monthly, I believe is what the current agreement is. And so we'll just keep tabs of that and then we'll pay that out.
Okay. And that was my question too. It goes both ways then. So
Correct.
we have the opportunity to assist them.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Holmes.
Yes, do these other agencies all have permanent employees or they've all volunteers?
They're permanent employees.
And how many in each one, do you know?
I don't have the information for that. Chief, would you like to talk about that? I brought Chief D'Ambrosi. He's currently in the interim spot for these agencies, so I'll let him address it.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mark Ambrosi, Acting Fire Chief, Placer Hills, Newcastle, Penryn Fire District. I was actually going to come under public comment, but since I'm here, I'll answer your question. All agencies right now are fully staffed, full-time personnel. We do have internship programs, and we also have some volunteer programs also. They are not included in this program to do. We have approximately 40 personnel between the 4 agencies right now. So in response to the smaller agencies, yes, we're smaller agencies, and that's what we're trying to protect is browning out those stations because we don't have the number of folks to constantly keep them staffed. We also have 2 entities that are ALS, Advanced Life Support. And that's very important because that's a level of service that we've decided to provide in those entities. The fire service is very tough to keep people. It's actually extremely difficult to keep medics. They are swiped up and gone down the hill as fast as we can hire them. We're all in the same boat. And so this program has proven successful. 3 of the agencies have been under contract for 5 years doing this. And the last 2 years, Penryn Fire Protection District has come into the fold. It's extremely beneficial, not only to help keep the agency staffed, but from a fire service perspective, we're instilling diversity. We're actually excelling that level of training, that level of experience, and the cooperation and interoperability between all of us. Basically, we're all doing the same thing. And if you look at it geographically, the city of Auburn's kind of right in the middle of us. So it only makes sense that we continue that automatic and mutual aid. And this is just another step in improving it. We're losing people back and forth to everybody. Your own agency is taking members from our agency through the JOA. So there's a benefit all the way around. It also pulls the training officers and operational chiefs together to standardize things across the board. So if there's any other questions, I'll be more than happy. Or
Which agency has the advanced life support?
Placer Hills and Forest Hill.
Yeah.
Placer Hills has 2 stations that are ALS staffed, and Forest Hill has 2 stations and they staff 1 ALS unit.
Thank you.
And Newcastle, just for information, since I'm up here,
Yeah.
Placer Hills and Newcastle are actually in the process of consolidation. We've had our application in the LAFCO for over a year. Unfortunately, the county has kind of put a hold on that until the MSR municipal service review is completed, which we're hoping will be done by the end of this year. If and I shouldn't say if, when that LAFCO process goes forward and Placer Hills is reorganized with Newcastle, your neighbor, it will also be an ALS station as well too. That's the level of service that we want to provide up and down the corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilman Holmes?
No.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing this forward, Chief. I wanted to know, have we entered into agreement like this in the past, or is this really the first time?
This is a pretty unique agreement because really what we're really focusing on is the personnel sharing.
Mhm.
You can compare it similar to what our state mission is when we send our personnel up and down the state for the large
Absolutely.
campaign fires and the reimbursement. So there are similarities, but really this is focused just on this region alone.
Okay. And I appreciate thinking outside the box a little bit, to deal with our shortage. And I'm very hopeful that the compensation package that the council approved at our last meeting will also help with that. And I've already gone on the record stating that I'm going to do what I can to ensure that we're able to put our personnel, bring back that 3rd person, even if it's on a limited term basis, which I've already been in conversation with our city manager about that. I know our former chief mentioned training, and I just wondered about consistency consistency across the board on training. And we're all different organizations, but can you speak to that just to ensure that everyone is, trained appropriately to ensure that they can respond properly, I'm assuming.
Certainly. The fire service has guidelines and directions as to our training. The state fire marshal has a curriculum that's set out for each rank and what that looks like. It also has what are known as task books, which are a pathway to work through experience to be able to demonstrate the expertise in that level. And we all follow that same process.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? I'll bring this up for public comment. Madam Clerk, any public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
So, Madam Mayor, moved by resolution, authorize the fire chief to enter into a joint operations agreement with Placer Hill Fire Protection District, Penryn Fire Protection District, Newcastle Fire Protection District, and Forest Hill Fire Protection District, and Auburn City Fire Department.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amar.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye, let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. All right, we move on to city manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick things. First is that we recently released our request for qualifications for the general plan update. We received 3 proposals for that. So we went through a scoring process with staff, kind of a blind scoring process. Now we will be meeting with the top rated proposer, and we'll be bringing that hopefully back to you sometime in August for possible action. And then the second thing, I'm going to actually turn it over to Menjel again, to our Public Works Manager, Menjel Dean, to just give an update on the paving progress that we've been undertaking this past couple weeks.
Yes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Menjel Dean, Public Works Manager. Just kind of want to give you guys a bit of a heads up of what's going on out there. I'm sure you've seen a lot of activity out on the roadway. We've done a lot of grinding over the past couple of days. We'll continue to do so over the next week. What you'll see, well, first, let me say that College Way and Hill is completely paved as we are speaking.
I saw that.
James Tabor came in and let me know that they wrapped up on Hill this afternoon at about 6 o'clock when we started here. So a little later than we wanted, but it is completely done. Those roads will probably serve us for quite a lot, some time to come into the future. But over the next week, what you're going to see is Lower College Way will be paved tomorrow. We're going to do some work on Morgan Court the day after. And then the big work is then going to come on trenching, on the trenching area on Hillmont and Magnolia Avenue. As you guys know, you guys approved some sewer work out there. And because of that, we had some additional dig ups and things like that. So that road is going to require a repave. You'll see something come to council here very shortly, requesting to use some additional sewer funds to put towards that project. Because of that, there's some more monies that is going to need to go into that. We've kind of exhausted the budget for what we've allocated already. Ruby is going to be happening at the same time in 2 days, but the big one that everyone needs to be aware of, and this is kind of what we're talking to you about, is High Street. High Street's going to be paved on Thursday. So that there's going to be some detours, and we really want people to be cognizant of that and be patient with us. Because the road is so traffic.
From where to where? All of High Street? Maybe we can just let the public know.
Oh, no, absolutely. So High Street is going to be paved from the corner of Pleasant. Is that Pleasant on that side? Yes, it's Pleasant all the way to the corner of Neighbors Lane.
Okay.
And that's going to be in both directions. So we're cognizant of that. There's going to be some flagging, and we're going to start early and hopefully finish before everyone is off from work to make sure that everyone gets what they need to do. But keep in mind that sometimes the trucks do show up late. Today we had a slowdown on Highway 80 with the trucks coming back into Auburn because of an accident. It took us several hours to get our trucks after the first 17 came in. So that's the one thing we really want to make everyone cognizant of. We're moving forward. The next big location that's going to be done is here in front of City Hall and the Maple Street exit, which everyone is kind of waiting on, but that's going to be night work. So that is planned to start on August 9th, and we'll wrap that up probably about 3 to 4 days after that starts. But we remain a little flexible on that one, but it is going to start on August 9th, and that will be night work. Night work usually means that we're going to start after 6 o'clock, about 6:30, just to make sure that everyone gets home from work before we're out there on the roadway. But again, we just ask that everyone be slightly patient with us because it takes time to get it done correctly.
Thank you. So Thursday, High Street from Pleasant to Neighbors Lane, both directions. So make sure that we're all planning accordingly with regards to our commutes, that will be happening. Good news on that front. Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, does that conclude your report?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go to Councilman Holmes. Do you have anything to report under city council reports?
Yes, well, I'm asking that the city do an electric vehicle charging station survey to see how many we have that are publicly owned and privately owned. And if we have any data on which ones are used the most and how much during the day, how long each one is used.
Yes, and let the record show that the council did not object to making that an informational item on an agenda when the city manager is able to get that before us. Do you have anything else you'd like to comment under, Mr. Holmes?
Well, there are, but I'll wait till next meeting.
We'll also need to work on switching out our free charging over to some paid charging. There's a lot of folks that are kind of just sitting on it versus it being used and then appropriately, and where people are kind of going through. There's some, I think that it's appropriate for people to be paying for their own charging from city facilities. So we'll probably need to bring that back at some point too.
Yeah, I think the only place they're not paying is City Hall
And over.
and the
at
Nevada
train
Street
station.
train
yeah.
station. So,
Yeah, so it's just normally if you can put a paid charger on, then you can also put fees for people sitting there, and we just want to make sure people aren't sitting at them.
I do know sometimes there will be a car back here for like overnight because it's a slow charger. The other ones are fast chargers, but the two, I think at the train station at City Hall are pretty slow, but yeah, so that can be all rolled into the EV charging station report that comes back. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Riddell Harris, do you have anything else that you'd like to add under this report item?
Not under this item.
Okay.
Are you talking about?
I'm talking about city council
my
committee
staff
reports.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, sorry, I was
Yes.
not sure. Met with the Mosquito Vector Control Board and our highest count ever of West Nile. All of that's down next to Roseville and Lincoln, because next to where they grow all the rice. That tends to be where they hang out more, but it's moving up into Rockland and some areas up here. Not quite to Auburn yet, but just something to keep an eye on. The mosquito counts are just really, really high this year. They had some news reporter was up in Tahoe getting attacked and it went viral. And so there's just there's just so many that it's just overwhelming. So make sure you're using your mosquito repellent and there's going to be a lot of spraying and treatments. If people need mosquito fish and things like that, they should contact them. There's just a lot of resources out there to make sure.
I think horses can contract it and it's not a good thing at all for them. There's a vaccination, I believe, for horses. So something just to keep in mind as it comes up the hill.
Yeah, so they haven't found any in Auburn, just so everyone's clear, but it is further down the hill. So that is a big one. And then I think that's the main thing. Oh, the other question I had was for city manager. So far, since I've been on the council, we've taken the first meeting in August off. So that way we can do the budgets things and also get, things in order when the first week of school is happening and stuff like that. Is that the case this year?
My understanding is that we're going to be able to do that.
Okay.
We should be able to.
So the 14th will not be a city council.
Right.
Great, thank you.
So
I have a question. Do they talk about ticks? Mosquito vector?
They're so busy with mosquitoes because of all the water that they haven't really gotten into that. It's not really the big tick season. They said
Oh,
that
it's not.
once it
Okay.
converts over to being the big tick season, then they'll do more outreach around that. But right now it's the big mosquito.
Yeah, I was just wondering. So ticks aren't,
They're not as
Probably
big right
right now.
now. It's because it's the drier season. I guess when it starts getting wetter, the ticks are out more.
okay, thank you. For us hikers.
oh, yes. Councilwoman Amara, do you have anything to report? on
Yeah,
that?
yes, sustainability met and just normal business budget and things, but the highlight I thought was a bike presentation by Kelly Davis. She was a guest And she had a PowerPoint and she gave the results of she took a little informal survey of the bike interest in Auburn and what the result was, that basically people want to be able to ride bikes. She had over 200 people and the demographics were mostly 40, 50. But she had a wide range of individuals who answered the survey. Most of them were from Auburn. And people want to ride their bikes, but the number one thing preventing them is they don't feel safe. So that was the reoccurring theme. Do not feel safe. Signage was important. We also talked about an inexpensive way to stimulate interest and get the momentum going was to have bike racks, nice bike racks all over town. Well, in strategic places in town, and bike lockers. I don't know much about this, but apparently you can get really nice bike lockers for 5 cents an hour. There's an app and you can put your whole bike in because there's a lot of things that can be taken off bicycles, as you know. All the extra contraptions that go on to bicycles, including the seat and everything. So you can put the whole thing in and then you can go around town and enjoy the town without worrying about your bicycle. So the sustainability group has allocated some money and they were hoping to maybe spend that on a plan to where to put, and I guess there's a company that will come in, and I think our city manager was in touch with Kelly and may have some information later on that. But in any case, that's kind of in the works. It was kind of exciting to have bike racks. But then also an even more exciting thing was at the meeting was one of the ARD council, what do they call theirs?
District members.
The district members, that's Sue Engel. And she said that they may have some funds and she's looking to ARD to supply us with bike racks around town. And that seems like could be a real possibility. So
Bike racks or bike lockers?
bike racks through ARD and maybe lockers, depending on how much money they have. So we would have the plan and then they would implement it, is the idea. We're hoping.
I
So-
like the use of their dollars.
Yeah, no, I think it's another example of working together with our ARD and getting something done. And I think it's wonderful to be able to work together because it benefits both of us. So anyway, that was, I thought, very exciting. We talked a little bit about, that was the biggest thing we talked about. The restaurant, there's a lively discussion on, as you've been told, you have to use your green bin, and we're trying to go to restaurants and have
Yes.
the restaurants, when people come in and have takeout, use instead of styrofoam, which is very unhealthy and takes years and years and years to break down, to use more cardboard that's not lined with plastic. Well, some individuals were saying that because there isn't the mechanism at some of these facilities, it still takes years to break down the cardboard, newspapers even, because they don't turn it, they don't use water, they don't use the proper procedures. And so the point being, when you go to restaurants, take out, bring your own containers and try and bring them. That's the best. Just like bags, you want to go into stores, use bags, and slowly that's becoming an education that is taking hold. So anyway, that was a interesting discussion. And then we had finally, we are doing a greenhouse gas inventory, but that's again through ICLEI, and that's a slow process because it's kind of been fluctuating. So anyway, that's still occurring, and that was the highlight of that meeting. And with ARD, I think you're the representative. I just want to say this.
I think that's Councilman Holmes.
Holmes, yeah.
Yes, yes.
I was pointing to,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Councilman Holmes, sorry.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping at some point they'll have some fees, a fee discussion, because I would like to participate. I brought my grandson over to the pool, the waiting pool, and it cost me $14. So anyway, I was just hoping, because I want people to be able to stay here. I know in other areas that you can go to little waiting pools and and be able to use it for free. And I'm not saying just for me, I'm just saying it benefits our community. So
Mm.
when they have the discussion, then maybe you should let us know.
I'd love if we could figure out in some of our planning, maybe it's at school park or something, a splash pad. The kids
Yeah.
love those things and you can recycle the water and it's not as much maintenance as a pool, but we don't really have any kind of, other than going to the pool and paying all those fees, we don't have anything free where people can kind of cool down in the
Yeah.
heat.
I agree. That's something to bring up at ARD meetings.
A lovely ARD item. Thank you very much, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Just a couple of items from me, with regards to the Endurance Capital of the World. We did have a meeting last week as well. We will be, we will have a booth at the Tevis, so promoting Auburn as the Endurance Capital of the World. We're also looking to have a float in the Lights Parade this year, so that should be fun. Working on our swag, the committee has some swag with regards to promoting Auburn as the Endurance Capital of the World. So we talked about that as well. And we've talked about the water stations, fountains. We're still talking about some additional places. And one of the places I had suggested, as you know, the city council had given the water bottle filling stations as a pilot to the Endurance Capital Committee based on, we had a young woman, a 9-year-old young woman who asked the council to look into that. So we've approved 2, one's been installed and we're thinking about one at the, in the art park there with Western States Trail Museum coming in and then maybe there near the restroom. That would be a good site for a water bottle filling station. So we haven't taken action to vote on that, but that is something that I had suggested as I thought that might be a good place downtown right there near the restroom. There's already plumbing there. It makes it easy. So also wanted just to report out Pioneer. We met last week as well. We did approve a partnership with a company called Electrum. Doesn't cost ratepayers anything or Pioneer Energy. And essentially they are like a clearinghouse for our customers that are looking to make purchases, either solar or to change over their hot water heater, other different ways in which to conserve energy. And they will actually do all the legwork. It's really a neat program where you can go in and say, I'm interested in doing solar. They'll get 3 different bid providers that help you work through it and so forth. So that's a program that they will be unveiling soon. We did approve that at our council meeting or at our Pioneer Community Energy meeting last week. Oh, okay. Also, we approved the development, not the development, I actually approved the adoption of a sponsorship program by Pioneer. We're going to spend about $50,000 in this first fiscal year, sponsoring various either events, those kinds of things here within the entire customer area. So El Dorado and county and Placer County as well. So that should be fun. There are some criteria, for example, not for profit. You can't be partisan or political events, not religious, not for individuals, not for specific groups or teams, because you can't, within the area, there's so many different teams that could be sponsored that would make it very difficult. Events that are discriminatory, of course, and some other criteria, but in any event, it is a new program, but a perfect example would be 4th of July events and, the cities and most of the jurisdictions within Pioneer's jurisdiction do have some kind of 4th of July activity. So that might be something that could be a possible sponsorship. So we did adopt the policy and they will unveil that process shortly as well. So it was a good meeting on that end. We also learned about the CPUC's development of this new fee. Now, what it's not really, so last year, the legislature passed and the governor signed AB 205, which was a trailer bill. And it contained a variety of different provisions, including it deleted the existing $10 a month cap on fixed charges for electrical users and asked the CPUC to adopt fixed charges that are established on an income graduated basis no later than July 1st, 2024. So we're going to be hearing more about this in the coming months. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration about this, but this is something that will be applied to the CCAs as well as the utilities. And again, there would be an income graduated fee that it would be applied pretty much to every user. Luckily, it would be based on transmission and distribution versus generation. But the whole thought process is that if you're in a lower income bracket, you wouldn't pay that fee. And if you're in a higher income bracket, you would pay a standing fee in addition to your velocity fee, your velocity charges.
Did they explain where they're getting the income information from?
That's the big issue is
I haven't
that,
heard that one
and
yet.
a lot of people are very concerned about this. Who is going to be handling that data? Who is going to be verifying your income level? So who's going to have taxpayers? So the PUC has got their work cut out for them. There are several proposals that have been developed. I think they have up to 6 that establish different income brackets and different fees. There's one, for example, if you make less than 30,000 a year, your fee might be $15, your standing fee. But if you make more than 195,000, you could pay a $92 fee. And that's in addition to your usage. So we just all need to be aware of this. The Pioneer is going to be monitoring this very carefully. And when we have an appropriate opportunity to comment, we will. This is law. The law has been established and signed. So July 1st, 2024, there will be a new fee. But we can do what we can to try to make it as least impactful as possible, but it's going to be a challenge. And it's interesting because they're changing the overall approach to energy conservation, because right now you conserve energy, you pay less. So now they're going to say, if you make a low amount, you're going to pay less. And it's sort of a disincentive to conserving energy. Also, those who have solar would be subject to the fee.
And that's really the point of it, because as somebody who works in the electric industry, the non-solar customers have been subsidizing the solar customers for a year, which isn't necessarily fair either. And so trying to figure out where for many years, they've been trying to figure out a way of have spreading those costs across the grid, because a solar customer wants to have power at night as well. And so they use the grid as well, but if they're not paying any of the fees, then all those fees are going to non-solar customers. So I understand the point of the fee. It makes logical sense. The how has been up for debate for many, many years in the industry. And I don't know if there's a good way. And I don't know if income has very big challenges on its own. I'm surprised they put that in law,
And it's in law.
but
yeah.
there's something they're trying to solve.
Yes, they are
Whether it
trying to
works well or
resolve,
not.
and I do understand the solar and the non-solar, but that is one of the impacts will be that solar will be paid where they're not now. So, well, and many of us are not. So in any event, there will be more on this issue. Again, there's a lot of buzz around it, and really that piece on who's going to be handling that financial data and how are they going to, cross-check that and many, many questions. So we will, again, Pioneer is monitoring this very, very carefully, and we will be weighing in with public comment when it is appropriate, to provide the least impact for our customers. That's really what we're looking to ensure is, so just want to let folks know. I also attended the League of Cities, Sacramento Valley Division meeting was in Lincoln on Friday, I believe it was. And we had a presentation from our Assemblyman Joe Patterson there on fentanyl and the legislation that he has been able to get signed and requiring, I think it's NorCal, I want to say NorCal, but it's what is the?
Norco?
Narcan.
Narcan.
Narcan. I always want to say NorCal, that's Narcan, requiring schools to have Narcan on their campus in case of overdose. So it was a good meeting, and the president of the League of Cities was able to come up for that visit. So really appreciated his time and energy as well. So that's all that I have to report. And so the next item on the agenda is really adjournment. So